Hi, my name is Simra, and I will be doing a reflection of Brene Brown's TED Talk titled The Power of Vulnerability. Brene Brown brings forth this difficult idea of being vulnerable because while vulnerability, as she stated, is the core of shame and fear, she also states that it's the birthplace of joy, of creativity, of belonging, of love. I think most people don't see that. They see vulnerability as fearful and as shameful. Because in order to be vulnerable, as Brown said, we have to allow ourselves to be seen, really seen. And instead of that being an opportunity to be vulnerable, it leads to shame because being seen means showing your flaws, your faults, and essentially your shame. Brown states this clearly in her talk. Shame is really easily understood as the fear of disconnection. Is there something about me that if other people know it or see it, that I won't be worthy of connection? And I think that this idea of shame, of fear of not living or being up to someone's expectations is what makes people run away from vulnerability. But we shouldn't be afraid. Brene Brown said that in her study, she divided the people who have a strong sense of love and belonging and the people who really struggle for it. And one of the things that the people who had a strong sense of love and belonging had in common, besides courage, is that they fully embraced vulnerability. Why did they embrace it? Brown said that they believed what made them vulnerable made them beautiful. And I think that this idea is incredibly important for people to know. Because people see flaws and imperfections and all the aspects of themselves that make them vulnerable. Just as that, flaws and imperfections, they don't see the connection, they don't see the bond, they don't see the beauty of it. This connects into our next idea of we perfect. We try to take all of the unknown variables and make them known. We try to predict and control the variables, but being vulnerable, that cannot be predicted and controlled. It is essential that we understand this idea and all of the ideas in Brene Brown's talk. And I think if I were in a way just to reflect upon her entire talk, it would be that we try to make our lives perfect. We want them to be neat, clean, and tidy. We don't want any unknown ideas or feelings or thoughts or shame or fear in our lives because those things can't be controlled and predicted. But the reality is, life is messy. It's not ever going to be perfect. It is going to have unknown feelings and thoughts. There's going to be shame and fear, but it's essential in order to fully embrace the power of vulnerability. So I'm also going to reflect upon another TED Talk that we watched in class, which was Ursus Wehrli's Tidying Up Art. His talk, I think, went in a completely different direction than Brene Brown's, because one of the most often used words in his talk was mess, and it was not used in the positive connotation that Brene Brown had used it. So his talk revolved around essentially cleaning up art. He took art pieces and cleaned them up by stacking them up by color and shape. And he said about the first piece, I just couldn't stand the mess anymore. And that is when he started tidying up these pieces of art. So from this, the main idea of the talk is about perfection and neatness. But there are instances where he says something a little off-putting. For instance, he says, even behaving in an orderly, systematic way can lead to complete chaos. I thought this statement was a little peculiar since his entire talk, the main literal idea was order and system cleans up the mess. So this statement that he says that order and system can create chaos brings a different depth to his idea. But I think the message he was trying to convey is somewhat opposite of to Brene Brown's, because he has the idea of order, perfection, structure, and cleanness. The description of Urus' talk is a visionary manifesto that yearns toward a more rational, more organized, and cleaner form of modern art. And the word that's interesting here is rational, as in logical and sensible, which is incredibly different than Brown's idea that if we try to make things more rational and logical and sensible, such as Ursus is doing, but we shouldn't because it takes away from vulnerability. But I think that Brene Brown's talk and Ursus Wehrli's talks are very different, and they bring different ideas to the table. But I think just because Brene Brown's talk she related hers to everyday feelings and thoughts, and she talked about a more like about a change, and like she conveyed like a better radical message, and I understood her ideas and felt the need to spread her message, the importance and the power of vulnerability. Thank you for listening.